If you want to live a life of pleasure, boom, it's at your fingertips and you can do so. That is why discipline is so important and it's very rare. There was a brilliant line from this chapter as well. Pleasure is paid for down the line with interest. The beautiful irony. You're never content, you're never satisfied, but at the same time you are, because you're progressing. Don't need a lot when you think about it. What do we need? Food, water, shelter, something we're progressing at, work that challenges us, love, sleep, a solid routine, something we're committed to. Everything else is a bonus. Think of the numerous amount of athletes who've reached a really high stage in their career only to fumble it all like that because the inner relationship they have with themselves is terrible. Be the person who is disciplined even when other people aren't watching. Why are you doing it at all? If you're not bringing yourself fully to this situation, why bother? Why are you holding back? Why are you half-assing this? Why are you not doing your best? What could you be capable of if you really committed to your best? Discipline. The ability to persist and resist. The ability to guide the ship when fortune tests you. There's probably no greater virtue that you can acquire. And there's only one book you need to read about discipline. And that is Ryan Holiday's Discipline is Destiny. I'm going to summarize it for you. This will be a full guide on how to cultivate, maintain discipline. Let's go. The book is split up into 3 parts. You've got the exterior, which is the body, the inner domain, which is the mental palace, and then the magisterial, which is the soul. I've picked my favourite chapters from each of these 3 parts, and we're going to dissect them, go further into them, and glean the lessons from each of those brilliant chapters. Part 1, the exterior, the body. First point, attack the dawn. There's nothing more for me to say than this, other than wake up early and stack wins while you can. You see so many things on YouTube about perfect morning routine. Don't worry too much about that. Figure out what your ideal day would be, and then start early. You might say you're not a morning person, but the key to win your morning is to organise the night before. Have a nightly routine. The organisation that you give your evenings is the strength that you will feel in the mornings. So attack the dawn. Number 2, quit being a slave. We're all slaves to something, at least one thing. Whether it's technology, gossip, a person, whatever it is, something external, you need to quit it. Ask yourself how old your habit is. Is this a habit you've acquired over 20 years of your life, 15 years? Has it been something that's just popped up over the last 2 years because you've realised you've been a bit stressed and the habit is no longer serving you? Analyse it and then quit it. A little thought experiment for you. If this habit was invented today, would you engage in it? Someone came up to you and pitched alcohol to you. Oh, there's this thing that is technically poisonous for you and it will make you feel really, really groggy tomorrow and it will ruin the next 2 to 3 days of your life and even the next few years after that, because you will do really embarrassing things. You'll lose your sense of control, but in the short term, it'll be really, really fun. Would you drink? Who can be free when they have lost the ability to abstain? We say we're after autonomy, yet we willingly hand ourselves over to habits that tell us more of me is all you need. That tell us we'll be unhappy, lonely, weak, in pain without them. How pathetic is that? Being ruled by something that only wants to take more of your life force from you. Say no to it right now. It's interesting, I learnt a new Buddhist word from this book, tanha, but it translates to craving or wanting. The problem isn't the thing, it's the desire that we cultivate for the thing. The hole inside ourselves we convince ourselves we need to fill. So quit being a slave, resist. Oh, just a quick one. I'm going to take 30 seconds of your time and then we'll get straight back to the video. It's a common thing that YouTubers will ask you to do. They'll ask you to subscribe or like. There's a reason for that. When you like or subscribe the video, it's feedback for me to continue making videos like this and I can grow the channel much more. The production can be better, I can get more guests on the podcast and I can grow it to the point where we can all enjoy much better videos. So choice is completely up to you. I would really appreciate if you like or subscribe. Let's get straight back to the video. Thank you for your time. Number 3, sweat the small stuff. This was a standout chapter. I really, really like this one. He starts this chapter with a story from Coach John Wooden, who turned up to the UCLA basketball team about to, become the new coach. And he sat the whole team down and he said, after some time, "Men, this is how you tie your shoelaces." To which the basketballers, renowned within their profession, thought, who the hell is this guy coming in to tell us how to tie our shoelaces? But it's a simple story. For want of a nail, the kingdom was lost. There's an old parable about, for want of a nail, the shoe of the horse was lost. And because the shoe of the horse was lost, the rider was lost. And because the rider was lost, the message was lost. Because the message was lost, the kingdom was lost. There's a perpetual cycle that runs whenever you neglect the basics of life and you don't focus on the details. How you do something is how you do anything. I'll tell you a story. One of the best things I learned from my granddad, it always sticks with me, his word. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And the way I interpret that is there's no grey area with this. How you pack your lunch away, how you reorganise your living room, how you send a message, everything is interconnected with the grand scheme of how you hold yourself to life as a human being. Don't just do it when you're in the presence of other people. Do it when you're alone. When you walk through the street, if you see litter on the floor and you hear a voice in your head saying, pick it up, pick it up. There's nothing too small that shouldn't be keenly attended to, because everything matters. We're fit to tackle the big problems only if we do the little things right first. No strategy will succeed, however brilliant, if it ignores logistics. And there was a brilliant quote from Zelda Fitzgerald, who lived quite a frivolous life herself. It is the loose ends with which men hang themselves. Those seemingly insignificant things of not tidying your room once a week, or not putting the bed covers back after you wake up. Yeah, some people might say, oh, it doesn't matter. It does. That is the part of being disciplined. It seeps into every area of your life, and you inevitably set a good example for other people as well. Number 4, hustle, hustle, hustle. This word has become a little bit negative in our culture nowadays, with people such as Gary Vaynerchuk, the incessant business people and entrepreneurs telling you to continuously work long hours into the night and neglect sleep. This chapter flips that on its head, still emphasizes the importance of having a sense of urgency, which is actually one of the staple quotes in Per Se, I believe, which is one of the biggest restaurants in the world. Having this sense of urgency where you can be patient with results, but impatient with actions. You want to have this fingertip feel of, right, let's act, let's not postpone, because postponing is a fool's game. We all know tomorrow's never coming, so lean into the pain of acting now. As Napoleon said, you may lose battles, but never lose a minute to sloth. Few of us hustle as much as we could. Are you someone whom colleagues and clients can count on to be there when they need you? Or will they have to prod? Will they have to beg? Will they have to repeat again and again the urgency of the situation? And what will they say about you if they do? Think about that. Be the ideal in any situation, especially in your working environment. Be the disciplined one who people can rely on. Let's say you're left in a room by yourself, whatever job you have. Be the type of person and colleague where your manager can know they can rely on you to leave you alone in a room, and they know that you will get the work done. It might not always be to that absolute brilliant standard, because forget about perfection. You're too good for perfection. So focusing on doing your best in a disciplined manner where you can turn up, you know what is the minimum that you can achieve, that you can work towards in order to be a reliable colleague and partner. That is incredible. Think about that. Be ideal in situations. Number 5, sleep is an act of character. Sometimes it is an act of character after you're really tired, after you've been working all day, to pick yourself up, walk to your room and just pass out. There's nothing more, there's nothing that you can do better to your discipline than that. Because willpower is one thing I've learned is willpower is a finite source, in the sense of, especially throughout the course of a day, let's say you're waking up at 6, your willpower over the course of the day will start to decrease. Therefore, it's important that you attack the heavy things first of all, the important things, the critical tasks and the deep work early in the day, because later on it will be harder for you to motivate yourself after a full day's work to then pursue disciplined tasks. So sleep and replenish yourself. He opens this chapter with a story of the famous boxer Floyd Patterson. So in 1956 he fought the other renowned boxer Archie Moore, and what he did a night before the fight, he slept, obviously, but he slept for 11.5 hours. And then he knocked out the reigning champion in the 5th round. So there's an element of sleep discipline that he coins in the book, which I really like that way to think about it. Having good sleep hygiene and having good sleep discipline isn't just pushing through, the hours late into the night, because you want sustainable productivity and you want sustainable discipline as well. And sleep will enable that. Move on to part 2, so the inner domain. Temperament. Wait for this sweet fruit. Joyce Carol Oates was one of the most prolific writers of her generation, and sometimes what she would do when she would finish writing a manuscript, she would set it for a year. She would put it in a drawer. I noticed this when I was doing my first year of university. The best thing I could do is write an essay early and then leave it. Let it mature like a fine wine. or like a good cheese, and then return to it, because inevitably when you write something or when you create something, when you allow the passage of time to go forth, you return to it a different person because you've had new experiences and you've allowed yourself to think about things as well. So the emphasis in this chapter is patience. As Aristotle said, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. We must always doubt our first bursts of excitement and indeed anything that comes easily. As Da Vinci also said, patience serves as protection against wrongs as clothes do against cold. For if you put on more clothes as the cold increases, it will have no power to hurt you. Same with patience. So think about it in terms of an infinite game, a game that you can't complete. It's very hard to compete against someone when they're playing across a really extended time frame. Number 2, the battle against pleasure. Wow. Kind of link into the chapter about quit being a slave. Pleasure is all around nowadays. If you want to live a life of pleasure, boom, it's at your fingertips and you can do so. That is why discipline is so important, and it's very rare as well. Think about the characters in movies as well. Think about The Hobbit, you know, the fat king who is waking up late, he's drinking all the time, and when it comes to make a sound decision, his default is tyranny because he lords himself over others. He hasn't mastered the inner kingdom. Therefore, what makes you think you're going to run a family or a external kingdom in that regard? Plato, the Greek philosopher, one of his statesmen, or Athenian statesmen, is called Timotheus. And he said, famously, after attending one of Plato's dinners, your dinners are enjoyable not only when one is eating them, but on the morning after as well. The thing is about discipline is, if you look at it from a spiritual point of view, sometimes people have a masochistic element to their pursuit of discipline where, as long as I know that I'm hurting, I'm doing something right, and they have an inner self-hatred for themselves. The opposite of that is pure Epicureanism, which is indulging in every single pleasure under the sun. One extreme, another extreme, of course, the cliche is to find the balance in between, and that's what you want to do. You want to put a timer on the pleasures because you want to anticipate the hangover that is going to inevitably come when you engage in this pleasurable act. Whether it's scrolling through your phone, think about the grogginess you're going to feel. It will take thought and mental energy to do this, perhaps before you engage in the activity. But let's say you're really excited and you're like, oh yeah, let's go out and drink tonight. Hold on, what happened last time? I woke up with a really bad hangover. I don't really want to do that because I've got stuff to do tomorrow. So you've got to be your own best friend and be like, okay, Lewis, remember what happened last time, for example. And the thing is with pleasure as well, if it leaves you, inevitably, because it does, when it leaves you in a worse state after engaging in it, you've got to ask, was it really worth it? Question I've been asking myself recently, whenever engaging in something that's quite dopaminergic and pleasurable, is did I receive fulfillment and alignment in proportion to the life energy I gave when engaging in this thing? Ask yourself that question, and if the answer is no, then obviously stop it. There's a brilliant quote from the Stoics which fits here. Remember to conduct yourself in life as if at a banquet. As something being passed around comes to you, reach out your hand and take a moderate helping. Does it pass you by? Don't stop it. It hasn't come yet. Don't burn in desire for it, but wait until it arrives in front of you. Act this way with children, a spouse, toward position, with wealth. One day it will make you worthy of a banquet with the gods. Woof! There was a brilliant line from this chapter as well. Pleasure is paid for down the line with interest. It accumulates. Compound interest is the key to everything in life, but it can also work negatively for you. As the book Atomic Habits points out, it's not just that when we cultivate good habits, the good renews again and again over time, but also with bad habits as well. You're engaging in that thing an hour a day. Add that up over a year. That's 365 hours of your time that you've spent doing this thing for 1 hour a day, whatever it is. There's also a brilliant quote from C.S. Lewis. He said, discipline or temperance is going to the right length and no further. It takes discipline to know when to stop. So you've got to practice it. And I would say that it does get easier over time. So for example, one thing that sometimes I struggle with is going on YouTube, because the YouTube shorts can be quite tantalizingly pleasurable to watch because they're quick, they're easy, and you can just boom, 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 you just go scroll through them. So sometimes you want to, when I'm sat there, maybe 30 minutes into just watching YouTube or something, saying, right, no, I need to stop just before it gets to a point where I'm like, oh, you know, I've watched like 30 minutes, I might as well watch like quite a lot. It's important to be able to practice that, and you do get better with it. That ability to practice saying no, it's like a muscle that you train. Number 3, temper your ambition. This one was fascinating because he talks about Napoleon, the French or the Corsican emperor. Now, in 1791, young Napoleon entered an essay writing contest over a span of 6 months. And the title, which he had to write an essay about, was, "What are the most important truths and feelings for men to learn to be happy?" He wrote a lot about ambition, and he spoke about leaders like Alexander the Great and where their ambition got them from a detrimental angle. He was arguing against ambition. So I'm going to read some of the things he said. Ambition, which overthrows governments and private fortunes, which feeds on blood and crimes. Ambition is like all inordinate passions, a violent and unthinking fever which seizes only when life ceases. And in his later life, he did the complete opposite of that. So young Napoleon was writing a warning sign to himself, or maybe he was just doing it to win the essay contest, which he didn't win in the end. But then to conquer half of the world and kill multiple people in battles after writing this essay when he was younger is quite comical from the perspective of ambition. And he got to the point later in life when he was emperor to call himself Monseigneur, or my French pronunciation is going to be terrible, and Altissime, or Serene Highness. To call yourself those terms, I mean, he did conquer quite a few countries, I'll give him that. But to then let the ego kick in and give yourself, one principle I uphold is you can't give yourself you can't choose your own nickname. He was an egotistical one at that. And I believe it was when he became emperor, one of his private ministers and good friend Talleyrand actually dug up and found the essay that Napoleon wrote when he was younger, gifted it to him as a warning sign. And Napoleon lamented his former self writing this article and said that, or writing this essay, and said that his younger self should be whipped for saying such a thing about ambition and how stupid it was. And when you look at the course of his life, yeah, he conquered nations. He ended up exiled on a rock all alone. A poet named Juvenal actually wrote of Alexander the Great that nations weren't enough for him. The whole world wasn't enough to fit Alexander the Great in, but in the end a coffin was. So it is with ambition. It's very good and it's very admirable in this day and age to have ambitions and to set your sights high, but you have to know when to stop. You have to know when to not go past the point in which you plan to achieve, because that's when we start to get into the tricky, murky waters of what is enough and not knowing exactly what is enough as well. There is a considerable amount of self-discipline required to quit bad habits, particularly the more gluttonous ones. But of all the addictions in the world, the most intoxicating and the hardest to control is ambition, because unlike drinking, society rewards it. That is the thing, society will reward your ambition and will even perpetuate it in the sense of have big dreams, have lofty goals. So you have to be your own sailor and engineer of your ship, let's say, the one that keeps yourself in check. So what I would say with this, because it might be quite hard to do that by yourself, you want to have conversations with reality. One thing that helps me is talking and talking out loud to myself. I've mentioned this in other videos before, but that might help you to maintain an inner dialogue with yourself and with reality in general. And in this chapter as well, Ryan Holiday points out that we don't need a lot when you think about it. What do we need? Food, water, shelter, something we're progressing at, work that challenges us, love, sleep, a solid routine, something we're committed to. Everything else is a bonus. Number 4. Get better every single day. One of the biggest stories in this is about Tom Brady, the NFL champion, we could say, and one of the youngest and oldest players to win a Super Bowl championship. The thing that Ryan Holiday points out here is that Tom Brady isn't obsessed with winning. What he's obsessed with is getting better every single day. How can he make his touchdown better? How can he make his technique of a throw better? That is the riveting joy you can gain through following a disciplined process and not getting caught up on rewards, results and success. Because let's say you reach a point where you think you can't achieve anymore. You won't achieve anymore. But let's say you think you can grow. You will grow and you will learn more things. So are you rotting or are you ripening in your skill sets? Be the exception. Most people don't even show up. Of the people who do, most don't really push themselves. So to show up and be disciplined about daily improvement, you are the rarest of the rare. Come what may, success or failure, fame or misfortune, a focus on progress lets us look ourselves in the mirror with pride and ignore all the commotion in the background. The beautiful irony. You're never content, you're never satisfied, but at the same time you are. because you're progressing. Number 5, do your best. This is a standout chapter as well, because it's not about perfection. One of the things that the modern discipline messages that you see on YouTube propel is every single day you have to be killing it. You have to be absolutely go, 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 and anything less than perfect is disservice. No, that is a very, very fast way to not only self-doubt, but imploding within your soul. Because holding yourself to such a high standard that you procrastinate so much on reaching that standard is to put a huge spanner in the works, to say the least. And the advice of do your best is standard advice from mums before any sporting competition. When I was younger, I was boxing and I was playing football as well. And I remember, especially before a football final or a semi-final, when my mum would be driving me there, and my dad as well, the standard advice is just do your best. It's good to feel nervous, but just do your best. Anything else is a bonus. And it's such cliche advice, but it's so true. Your best will change day to day. It will. Some days you might be sick, some days you might be tired, your nutrition might not be right, your training might feel a little bit off. Your best will not be what it was a week ago, because you have to adapt to the circumstances of your daily life. But doing your best is the best way to build respect and contentment within yourself. Your best is good enough. Leave the rest to the judges, the gods, fortune, the fates, as Ryan Holiday says. As long as a man is trying as hard as he can to do what he thinks is right, he is a success. And if you're not trying your best, if you're half-arsing something that you're doing in life or a pursuit that you've brought your mind to, why are you doing it at all? If you're not bringing yourself fully to this situation, why bother? Why are you holding back? Why are you half-arsing this? Why are you not doing your best? What could you be capable of if you really committed to your best? There's a brilliant story from a musician, Ralph Ellis, where he learned an invaluable lesson from his musician tutor, Hazel Harrison. And she said, "You must always play your best, even if it's only in the waiting room at Chekhov Station, because in this country there will always be a little man behind the stove who knows the music and the tradition of musicianship required for whatever you're setting out to perform." There's a funny story in one of the jobs that I just finished. So it was an absolutely brilliant job. I was a salesman in a leisure centre. One of my managers, Cam, he had this superb ability to always walk in on people when they were on their phones. You might have smashed out 6 hours of productive work, you've done all your sales calls and everything, you rest and you go on your phone for 5 minutes, guarantee Cam would walk through the door. And there's this idea in jobs as well, where managers will sometimes announce to their employees and their colleagues when they're going to be going around to sites or when they're going to be in the office. And you know what everyone does? It's like when Ofsted comes to your school to to rate your school. Everyone's like, oh yeah, be on your best behaviour, make sure you're knuckling down, put your smiles on and everything. That is so shallow when you think about it. Be the person who is disciplined even when other people aren't watching. So you never have to worry about, I'm doing something that I wouldn't want other people to see me doing. Never do that. Again, how you do something is how you do anything. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So do it well, whether alone or in company. And those people in your life, you'll know them. They're those other disciplined people who, even when you have them in your mind, they call you to do better. I have many friends like this. One of my really good friends, Joe, he's ex-military. And when I first met him, he was the gym manager in the gym that I was working in. And when I was doing my workouts, I remember one of the first times we really connected, he was walking around the gym and I just thought, wow, even his presence here, that disciplined presence that he had, I was like, hell yeah, I want to do more in my workout. So be that for yourself. Have that disciplined squire in your head that's like, look, I'm holding your best interest in mind. Come on, let's do it. What would your ideal self do? We got 4 more and we're moving into the last part now, the magisterial, which is the soul. Number 1, tolerant with others, strict with yourself. Now we're getting into the really interesting aspects of discipline. As you start to cultivate discipline and maintain it within your life, you might notice that you'll be judgmental of other people in your life who aren't as disciplined as you, as your standards begin to raise. But you've got to be very careful with this, because you have to remember that you're doing it for yourself. Discipline is for you. You want to set a good example naturally for other people, so you can lead through example. But you have to search others for their virtues and search yourself for your vices, because your values aren't for other people. I like the term spiritual aggression. It can be quite spiritually aggressive when you try to infringe your values on another person. So you have to be very careful with that, because wielding your superiority over others does no one any good. It doesn't do yourself any good, and it doesn't do your relationships any good, because sometimes people will naturally try and avoid you. Because sometimes you can be like a judge, especially if you are on the discipline path and you're being consistent with stuff, all of these brilliant endeavors. You naturally hold up a mirror to other people and show them what they're not achieving. So you've got to be very careful of that and just lead through example, not by lecturing, because the path that a great man follows becomes a guide to the rest of the world. And there's a psychological concept which encapsulates this idea here. It's called refraction. So the more you try and force someone to do something, the more they'll dig their heels in and actually try and exert their autonomy and not want to do the thing that you're telling them to do. You experience this daily, most likely. So you have to give people the autonomy to choose the discipline path by themselves. And when they're ready for advice, you can give it to them. But as a rule of thumb, don't try to remove a fly from your friend's head with a hammer, and lead for example. Dost thou think that because thou art virtuous, there shall be no more cakes and ale? As Sir Toby says in Shakespeare's play, The Twelfth Night. I remember a last story I'll mention about this, because it's very easy to be on the other end of that and see another disciplined person and think, oh, you know, compare your life to theirs in some respect. I remember in my first jiu-jitsu gym, discipline was ingrained within the culture. If you were late, then obviously you had to stand out and shake everyone's hand as they're running around doing their warm-up. There were punishments for it. You would stand there and Patrick, the black belt, would assess all of our uniform. And I remember there was this one time where after rolling and practicing, he said, one thing you have to pay attention to is everyone's jiu-jitsu journey is completely different. It's the same with everyone's discipline journey. It's completely different. It might involve different things. It might involve different extents to which you are disciplined. Your journey, your values, your path, your destiny is for you. Allow others their own destiny. Number 2, be kind to yourself. You don't hear this message a lot in the modern disciplined YouTube shorts and, you know, David Goggins, all of that, go, stop being a bitch. You don't hear this message. You have to treat yourself like you are your own best friend. I uploaded a YouTube shorts about this, so let me reiterate that. Discipline without love is useless. You can reach great heights through being disciplined from a place of self-hatred, where you're disciplined because you have an inner disdain for yourself. But think of the numerous amount of athletes who've reached a really high stage in their career only to fumble it all like that because the inner relationship they have with themselves is terrible. Being disciplined from a place of self-love is key. Same with children as well. You can't discipline children without having the love to hold their best long-term interests in mind. Being disciplined from self-love means a few things. It means you hold yourself accountable. It means you pick yourself up when you're down. It means you cheer yourself on. And it means you treat yourself like you are your own best friend. Because the thing is, for the rest of your life, you're going to be living up here, okay? So you might as well make up here a good place to live. And you cultivate that through being your own best friend and being disciplined, because doing so will make your life easier. Hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. Number 3. Second to last one, flexibility is strength. Sometimes, especially when you're practicing something, it's easy to get into the grooves of the practices and the things that have worked before. Robert Greene highlights in his book 33 Strategies of War, don't fight the last war. What has worked before might not work a week from now or a month from now. So an element of discipline isn't rigidity. Rigidity is the enemy because it will leave you stagnant and will leave you rotting. What you want to do is ripen your skills and develop them over time through discipline and reliability. Number 4, let's end it off with a good one. Unchanged by success. This is brilliant. I love this chapter. I really, really do. And this is a brilliant place to end as well. Don't trade your success for ego. Don't trade your success for superiority and thinking that you're better than other people. And there's 2 historical examples that he gives in this chapter. One is Angela Merkel, so the Prime Minister of Germany. When the Berlin Wall fell, she had 1 beer and went home. She had things to do the next day. And in 2021, when Prince Philip died, Queen Elizabeth, there's shots of her sitting in St George's Chapel with a COVID mask on. She could have invited millions of more people to the funeral, but she said no. It was unfair on the British public because they were upholding the regulations of the COVID restrictions. So for her to do the opposite would be a disgrace. Using winning or losing as an opportunity to get right back to it is key. Maintain that discipline. Even more so, prove in fact that success has changed you for the better. Choose discipline and cultivate it every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, before you endeavour forth on your path of discipline, allow me to give you one last word of warning. There may be times where you find yourself longing for something, or even noticing that something is lacking. It is at this moment that you have neglected love and playfulness, and you should revert back to those two instantly. Because the pursuit of discipline can oftentimes be very serious, so you need something that is going to level and balance that out. Playfulness, laughter, joy, love, dancing, craziness, or all of these things will balance out your pursuit of discipline. So don't forget to laugh, don't forget to be crazy, don't forget to do stupid stuff, but be disciplined amongst all of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, discipline is destiny. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. What?